going on, everybody? It's CZN Dev Video Commentary just dropped last night, so we're going to go over it real quick, try and summarize all the points, and then give some thoughts briefly. For the early story, they said they wanted to focus on a wider appeal, thus we get a not-so-dark story. And they finally gave some concrete information on how Trauma Code is going to work. Trauma Code will be individual character storylines that you'll have to unlock with some kind of a key. We're unsure how we get this yet. I assume it'll work somewhat like Monetization. I don't really remember how you got those keys, but did some content, you got a key, and you got to do some side story content. But these will focus on individual character storylines to try and expand on the lore a little bit for them, and it will also have multiple endings and have a more dark tone compared to the main story, which I think is a decision. I think they should have just embraced the darker tone overall, even in the main story, as that was kind of the, big marketing push, the wide appeal for the game, or at least what people were kind of expecting going in. And now giving more concrete details as far as how seasons will work. First up, they are going to be broken up into 3 sections. This is going to span over an entire period of 9 weeks, but each section is going to be a 3-week period. So with this, we can expect a character banner every 3 weeks, as well as a new story update every 3 weeks, which is all going to center around some theme in any given season. They are pretty open-ended about this, though. They say that they will explore a wider range of themes and topics than the original main storyline. So I don't know if this means that they're going to go into more detail as far as what happens in a chaos, what happens in a story, or if this is going to be somewhat separate. And here you can see some art changes they made. There was some recent controversy with Korean players, basically some allegations on AI. They made a video on their Korean channel kind of addressing that, so if you want to see that, you'll have to go check out their Korean channel. But basically they said that they use AI generations as references more so than they did actual in the art itself. But here you can see some changes that they're trying to do with some consistency. Large team of artists, some things got mixed up. So you might miss some things like details on a buckle for Maribel, for example. But you can see some changes here. And let me see if I can... There we go. Here's some changes with Nia, and then some changes with Maribel. Outside of the consistency issues, I mean, I get it after you look at the pieces and there is like some slight consistency differences. I honestly like the ones beforehand before. The Maribel one, she kind of looks like, it's more like a sullen, a sunk face, truly embracing the horror aspect. And then here, for the Gooners, I think people would have actually preferred these belts hanging lower, whereas now they entirely covered the midriff. I don't personally care that much, but I do think that these designs, I don't know, they felt a little more character in them. And then I'll show this clip here. I don't really understand it because I didn't, pull these characters, but it looks like maybe Kayron has a new animation. Yeah, that does look different than his other one, so it looks like they're adding some extra animations or additional animations to some different cards potentially, so a little more of that cut in anime-esque style, which looks really cool. So I think it's crazy that they're actually even going back and then throwing even more animations on some characters, because if that is brand new and it's not just a replacement or something, that would be, 3 of these unique anime cutscene animations for at least 5-star characters. And here they talk about some optimization for devices, I guess, if you run on maybe older devices. I ran it on PC and I ran it on my phone, which is a Fold 2, Fold 3. I don't know, it's a pretty old Fold version, but I know it's still strong enough to run things like this. But something like Last Claudia, for example, lags a lot, but the CZN ran pretty damn smooth. But hey, for people with weaker devices, cool, this should run on even more potatoes. They reiterate here again, which again we already saw in the Proto Genesis video, that they do already have some improved tooltips and translations, but they do say that, that again, they're going to improve tooltips for keywords and functions. They had a specific statement here that I wanted to see. We'll make sure no details or keywords are missing, which is interesting. Hopefully that is true. Next, they show off a little again about the Zero system mode that was locked in the playtest, which we already kind of knew was going to be an endgame chaos manifestation mode, so the roguelike mode. But here again, they weren't very specific. They were pretty sparse on details again. Just says lets you enjoy richer and varied roguelike gameplay, which we already know is going to have some form of modifiers that will rotate out, changing on seasons or in like during seasons. Here I'll show this one off real quick because I know a lot of people were... I kind of glazed over this one just because I had to re-record my combat portion of my first impressions video like, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. But here you can see a clip that, yes, breakdowns are going to have a little more randomness to them. They're going to have different mechanics to them. I will say, after seeing this clip and seeing the difference in the playtest, I'm wondering if this was already in the works or something that they just kind of did as a like last ditch effort. So my only real concern about them diversifying the breakdown mechanic, whereas before it only worked, one way for every character, whereas here it looks like it's either going to be completely random or it might be more specific to characters. I kind of doubt it'll be specific to characters, so it's probably just going to be completely random, period. Yeah, my only concern would be that this isn't really fleshed out very much, and it is kind of just a, like I said, a last-ditch effort, so that would mean that this really hasn't had a lot of thought, a lot of time, or a lot of resources dedicated into actually rebalancing or retooling that system itself. But I know a lot of people were excited for this change, so I'm glad that, they addressed it for them. And they do say we'll keep improving the visuals and breakdown effects in future updates, so we can expect to see further updates into the breakdown system as we progress forward into beyond the launch of the game. When they talk about balancing, this is going to be what I assume to be balancing before the launch of the game, and we again already know that between seasons, some of the neutral cards in the pool that you can find in your runs will be changing out. So we do know that that is going to change between seasons, but they're talking about rebalancing a lot of things before launch comes around, which I kept saying. I think they will rebalance a lot of stuff, but yes, they will be. Some cards are overly powerful or underused, so they're going to be changing that. Epiphany values are getting rebalanced. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means epiphany cards, chance of epiphany, how many times you can get an epiphany. Who knows? So yeah, here, reworking common cards and equipment from unknown spots. Unknown spots are the random events that you can run into, so either a positive or a negative effect that can happen. What I assume will happen is that they will change cards balance in general, but what I think they were talking about there specifically with the unique events is maybe diversifying what you can get potentially, or even expanding maybe the uniqueness of items or cards that you can get through events rather than getting it randomly somewhere else like a shop. And finally, monetization, the biggest one. I think here people are going to be pretty split. You're either going to be a fan of these changes or you're not going to be a fan of these changes. Personally, in my 50-50 video, I said that one of the worst practices that Hoyo has brought into the market is the fact that rate-up characters, or I should say new rate-up characters, do not then get added into the standard pool, so you're left with some shitty pool of characters that, are just forever going to flood your 50-50s. But here now they are stating that every rate-up character besides seasonal characters, which they use seasonal a few times throughout the commentary, so it's hard to say until somebody actually properly translates maybe a Korean version of the video. But it's hard to say whether that is talking about seasonal characters as in the seasons they have in game, or seasonal as in like Christmas, Halloween, summer, alts, things like that. My assumption is that they meant to have two different kind of seasonal translations, and what they're talking about is the Christmas, Halloween, and whatnot, but we don't know for sure, so I will put that out there. But besides the collabs and seasonals, all new rate-up banners will then be added into the standard banner. Again, I'm not going to completely trust the translations here, so I don't know if that means they're going to hit standard as soon as they drop or as soon as they end. But yes, that's very cool. It means that 50-50s and, getting spooked by something else is not always going to be an awful thing now. Right, and my brain keeps disassociating the partner banner stuff entirely, but the new rate-up partner banners will also get added into the standard pool as well. Here it's shown that those same rate-up partners, the weapons, are going to be available for purchase in the shop as well. So it's not just going to be like, always my example, in Honkai Star Rail, you have the one-time purchases of 5-star weapons in the shop through currency you gain when you pull, but it's only for the launch 5-star light cones or weapons. So here they are stating that the rate-ups will be added, as well as we can see in the video itself that in the playtest, this costs 600 of this currency you get from pulling characters or partners. I don't really remember which one is which. But yes, so they seem to have halved the cost as far as partners go. So it was 600, now it's 300. And this one here is an interesting approach. They say they're working to ease the burden of the limit break system. So this is the dupe system. And thank you. Let me find you real quick. I forget who it was. I think it was Ezkatan. Yes, thank you to Ezkatan. My dumbass completely skipped over the little footnote because my brain just kind of was like, it can't be that important. But we are adjusting character performance differences through ego manifestation compared to the limited playtest. That means they are adjusting balance of the dupes, which thank God, because again, that was another one of my bigger complaints is just how strong dupes really felt in the playtest itself. So showing that same currency that you're going to gain through pulling in the gacha for 350, that's 50 over getting a 5-star partner, you're going to be able to get up to 2 dupes, period, for any given character. This includes the rate ups, as we can see with Haru here. So a little pricier, but that is 2 whole dupes. Again, I said period. So this is over the lifetime of the game until they end up changing this for whatever reason. But just 2, one and done. This is not like a monthly reset. And just to be very clear, in case anybody misinterprets this, no, I do not think, and I'm pretty damn sure these are not characters themselves, they are the dupes only. And they say that dupes can also be earnable in the seasonal content. Now, if that means character specific or if it means universal dupes, who knows? I think they're going to trend towards universal so that way you can kind of more focus into the characters that you actually want to focus into. I lied. Scratch all that. Can be used to unlock ego manifestation for any combatant you choose. So yes, universal. Cool. I already watched this last night, but you know, I obviously don't remember every single detail. And this is kind of the last point as far as the commentary itself goes. They say that they'll provide enough gacha currency through early gameplay to cover around 200 pulls. This is, again, very open-ended. You know, what is early gameplay? 200 pulls, they say around that. Is it less than that? Is it more than that? Is this through rewards and events? Is this including like achievements, first time clears? It most likely is, you know, they say gameplay, so you'd have to imagine this is like first time clears, is achievements, etc. I guess the bigger question is, what are they defining as early gameplay? Is that like the first 3 chapters? Is it just 1 chapter? Who knows? I will say the good thing about 200 pulls though is that means that you can, if you fail your 50-50 in the, you know, launch rate up, that means you can go all the way to the 140 full pity and then still have 60 pulls left over if you're going to be somebody who skips weapons entirely, which, you know, from playtest experience, I think you should, but who knows? But that means you get to sit on 60 pulls at least for the launch and then continue to stack that up and work towards whatever future banners you want to. Again, like I said, I think people are going to be very divided on this. The gacha is basically untouched as far as we know, but making dupes more accessible for free-to-play players, as well as making 50-50s not so bad by making sure all limited characters are added into, well, not really limited characters are added into the standard banners are all good, you know, directions in my opinion. And I won't go over this part too much. I've pulled some details from this already as I was talking about the developer commentary, but there was an interview on This Is Game. I think this is I'm just gonna check the translation. Yes, a Korean forum of some sort, but they did an interview with one of the members of the team over at CZN. I don't know what a PD is, but the super creative PD, Kim, I won't attempt to butcher the name. But through me trying to parse some of these online translations, I just wanted to go over just a couple of the points that weren't exactly covered by the commentary itself. Just real quick, I'm just gonna read them off, throw up some gameplay, something like that. And again, remember, these are not like official translations, so there might be some mix-ups here. I'm just going to, from what I gathered or what I understood off of some of them, I'm just going to state them as is, but the translations could be off, so they could be a little wrong. But first we have, see here, states there will be even more freedom of deck building as more things are unlocked, so the further chaos modes and whatever other modes that were locked off during the playtest. And then here, this one I feel like, I don't know, maybe I'm interpreting it wrong, but it does seem like there's going to potentially be a additional difficulty or additional mode after Chaos Zero, something along those lines. It's called Nightmare, and they specifically say, right, so yes, Nightmare, the new difficulty level or the new mode of Chaos Manifestation. Not sure. They will, apparently they'll ramp up the gore and horror, whatever that means. Apparently they said that they like toned it down a bit as far as the rest of the game is concerned, but here it will be, you know, full front, I guess. Anyway, something potentially new that we haven't seen yet at all, which is really cool and really exciting. They mentioned some unseen elements or potentially like gameplay to Arc City. This is where you manage the policy numbers and stuff. You know, it's where you go get coffee and all that jazz. But they state something related to Macross and music. I don't really know anything about Macross. I think it's an anime. And maybe my translation is, you know, maybe off here, but I feel like other people's might have been a little off as well. Shields seemed strong in the playtest, but they will combat this by anything that becomes too meta with varied monsters and mechanics, not directly nerfing anything. So I assume they're going to try and rotate out any, you know, defining metas come with seasonal changes, like Shield being a lot stronger than heals. And on the back of that, they stated post-launch, there should be no nerfs to characters as well as no skins planned either. But they did mention different sides of characters called corruption, but joke that it is not Moonlight characters. For people not familiar with Epic 7, Moonlight characters are alternate versions of other characters that are pulled at a much lower rate. So yes, again, joking that they are not Moonlight characters, but some corrupted version of characters. I guess we'll see. And they talked about the 9-week seasons, you know, so every season is going to be 9 weeks and it's going to be split into 3 parts, 3 weeks each. They go into a little more detail here in the interview saying like, and I think this was just an example, not specifically saying this is how it's going to work, period. They said that there will be smaller weekly updates where like week 1, there'll be a new chaos. Week 2, there could be a new raid boss. Week 3, zero system expansion. So things to look forward to week as well. And then staying on topic of the season with the seasonal image, I wanted to talk about this a little bit as well. But the launch of the game, we will start with a preview season, and then season 1 will start 3 weeks after. So preview season is probably going to be the Haru banner, and then season 1 will be 3 weeks later, Forbidden Catalyst, as we can see here. And it looks like the 3 characters are going to be Chizuru, Yuki, and I don't know if we've really seen this character yet. And then there's also the silhouette of a character in the back. You can see her back turned. You know, I'll just say a little warning on spoilers if you didn't want to see anything as far as the story went in the live playtest. But I think, maybe I'm wrong, but just off memory, it kind of looks like Luche, however you pronounce her name. But yes, preview season, and then the season 1 will come. But yes, hopefully that is everything from the commentary itself and pretty much everything that I wanted to cover from that interview as well. Links to everything in the description below, but I'd like to hear, you know, what everybody else thought about the commentary itself. Clearly I'm pretty biased, but most of it got me pretty excited. The biggest thing I think, of course, again, is going to be the monetization itself. I think that those changes are, they're good enough for me, but I already didn't care too much about 50/50 itself. I care more about the nuance around all of that. But I know for a lot of people that alone is not going to be enough for them. And it's an easy enough headline for anybody to state that, you know, 50/50 is still here and then no other details. So at the end of the day, it's going to be about how players feel about it. And if it feels bad for them, then it feels bad for them. And there's, you know, nothing you can really do about that. So I don't know, not perfect, but, you know, I enjoyed it. Anyway, hope this was helpful. Thanks everybody for watching. Stay tuned for more CZN content. I'll catch you in the next one.